North Korea has unveiled a new submarine-launched ballistic missile. It's described by state media as the world's most powerful weapon.
North Korea continues to claim there are 0 cases of COVID-19 within its tightly sealed borders.
State media outlets continue to claim the regime is unaffected by the virus.
But the real situation on the ground is hard to assess.
Hello and welcome to The Nexus. On today's program, what's really going on inside North Korea? The secretive nation led by Kim Jong Un claims to have 0 COVID cases. But with China right next door, can that really be true? Also coming up, who's winning the arms race on the Korean peninsula? Both sides are ramping up their weaponry. And was a government minister really executed for not holding enough video calls? We'll try to find out here on The Nexus. North Korea has been an isolated and secretive nation for decades, and during the pandemic, it's only become harder to find out what's going on inside the country. Recent reports include official announcements, which are worrying enough, but then there are the rumors, which are even more disturbing. North Korea is apparently unique in the world. The pandemic has missed this country of 25 million people, and so North Koreans were free, in fact ordered, to celebrate their founder's birthday last month with this massive, tightly packed and choreographed display. Kim Il-sung, grandfather of the current supreme leader Kim Jong Un, would have been 109. People here still miss him dearly. These celebrations in his honor were only possible, of course, because the nation he founded has no coronavirus cases, at least not officially. Yet the dancers and spectators were all ordered to wear masks. Draw your own conclusions. Barely a week before this national party, the supreme leader made headlines around the world when he did something rather rare. He admitted that North Korea was going through very difficult times, even using the phrase Arduous March, which is usually shorthand for the famine of the 1990s. And yet, there always seems to be money and resources for the military. Back in January, a new weapon was revealed, a submarine-launched ballistic missile, which they claim is the most powerful weapon in the world. Since then, Western news organizations have run several lurid headlines. One on how Kim Jong Un ordered his military commanders to have the nation's nuclear weapons ready, and another on predictions of big missile tests coming up soon to test America's new president. Meanwhile, South Korea's leader Moon Jae-in has been grabbing headlines too, claiming Donald Trump failed to deal with Kim Jong Un when he had the chance. Trump retaliated, of course, by saying Kim Jong Un of North Korea, who I have gotten to know and like, never respected the current president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in. He also called Moon weak as a leader and negotiator. Other headlines are less reliably sourced, but just as eye-catching. A high-ranking education minister was reportedly executed recently for not making enough video calls. And a North Korean defector revealed to a British tabloid that she fears Kim will send assassins to kill her in her adopted home of Chicago. Let's bring in our guest now, and Robert Kelly, in the top left corner there, is a professor of political science at Busan National University in South Korea. Collins Werko is a senior correspondent for NK News, which is a website focusing on North Korea. Dr. Nagi Shafiq used to work for the World Health Organization and UNICEF and was based in Pyongyang for nearly a decade. And finally, Jake Kim is a North Korean refugee now living in Utah, having risked his life to escape more than 10 years ago after his father was killed. Dr. Kelly, I'd like to start with you. South Korea has had over 120,000 cases of the coronavirus, and yet we're asked to believe that across the border in North Korea, they've had none. Do you believe that?
No. I think it's highly unlikely. I believe corona is in almost every country in the world. The North Koreans have a long history of lying in public statements. I mean, there's no particular reason why we should grant credibility to an Orwellian mouthpiece, which is basically the North Korean news services. My guess is, I mean, we don't know, they don't tell us much. My guess is that there are some cases and they're controlled extraordinarily harshly, that people are quarantined, or maybe even, quite honestly, they may even be killed in order to prevent corona from spreading because at the grassroots level, the North Korean health system is very, very poor.
And what is the motivation for making such a pronouncement, which most people around the world would, dismiss out of hand?
Well, I think it's sort of fear that North Korea is always sort of one or two crises away from collapse, right? I mean, North Korea looks sort of ferocious on television with the goose-stepping soldiers and the missiles and everything else, but North Korea actually has a lot of structural problems at home, right? I mean, we're always sort of worried that North Korea might sort of implode, if there's going to be a coup, or there'll be some sort of Arab Spring-style revolt in the countryside or something like that, right? I mean, North Korea is actually quite a fragile state, and corona is pretty obviously stressing healthcare systems and governments around the world. And I think the North Koreans just want to sort of pretend that this thing doesn't exist, so they're lying to us.
Right, Jake Kim, you escaped North Korea something like a decade ago. From your experience of living there, do you believe the regime when they say they've had 0 cases of the coronavirus?
Oh, I don't believe that. Last year and maybe last September and early January this year, I talked to broker in North Korea. They know COVID very well, and then all North Koreans are forbidden to travel anywhere within North Korea. So that means there's a COVID case, but they declared publicly they have no COVID case in North Korea, but I don't believe that.
When you were there, did you often see cover-ups of public health emergencies?
In North Korea, if something like that happening, they just have to be at home. The government to strictly control North Korean people. So that's all. There is nothing like some medicine or something guideline, nothing.
Nagi Shafiq, you worked with the WHO and UNICEF in North Korea for nearly a decade, from 2001, and that was during the SARS and the measles outbreaks. Do you believe they have 0 cases of the coronavirus, or from your experience, do they have a record of covering up these public health emergencies?
Well, about the number of there is 0 cases or not, I'm not in a situation to confirm or deny. This is very difficult for me at this end. But as you mentioned from my previous experience, that during the crisis of SARS and measles, the SARS was 2003, and then after the SARS, there was a train explosion in the north east, the border with China, in 2004, and there was an outbreak of measles in 2007. I was there all the time, and I think also many people said that, or were expecting that the Korean government will cover up, but actually they were open about it. Again, I'm not in a position to deny or to confirm. This is very difficult for me at this end. But on the other hand, also, I don't see any interest or advantage for them to cover up for this. I mean, if they declare that, and they already declare that they are needing humanitarian assistance, it won't affect them. So I don't know about this, if they are covered up or not, or if there's cases or not. All the information we got through the WHO that they made testing for more than 23,000, and they were negative.
Right. Collins Worko, I know that you're following what's happening in North Korea the best you can, using open source material, data, photographs, satellite images, and so on. Can you tell us specifically what the North Koreans are doing to make sure that the goods coming in through China, and something like 80% of all imports come from China, are actually cleaned and sanitized to mitigate the risk of getting coronavirus?
So the North Korea locked down their borders in January 2020, and there were some times where they were letting in more goods than other times, but really strong lockdown starting in mostly August 2020. So there were some attempts recently. North Korea passed a law in March, officially called the Import Disinfection Law, and that's to try to remedy some of this extreme paranoia and distrust in the science that the North Korean government has officially subscribed to. So they built, we've seen in satellite imagery, up in the northwest of the country near the Chinese border, they've converted an airport into what appears to be a large disinfection center and built a couple of new sections of train line to bring trains from China and disinfect these goods in a way that surpasses what most other countries in the world, how they're treating sanitizing goods to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
So just as a household, would take care of its delivery, it would, clean, sanitize all the goods before putting it into the refrigerator and the cupboards and so on. You're saying they've established this new kind of depot, if you like, and they're now sanitizing everything that comes in from China?
That's what it appears to be. There's been some reporting from other outlets that support these, what I'm able to analyze from satellite imagery. We can't see it on the ground, so we don't know exactly how this operation works, but we don't expect that they're going to start importing goods to the levels from prior to COVID-19, but it seems that they're trying to at least bring in some goods.
Robert Kelly, at the beginning of April, Kim Jong Un, in a rare admission that anything was going wrong there, did ask officials to wage another arduous march. What does that actually mean? What is he alluding to?
Right, so that's a reference to the famine that occurred in North Korea in the late 1990s, where somewhere between 3 and 10% of the population died over a 3 or 4 year period of time. There's much debate about what exactly happened and what the numbers were, again, because the North Koreans don't tell us much, and when they do, they frequently lie. And so what the irony of this, actually, this time, is that when Kim Jong Un ascended to the throne, as it were, back in 2012, one of the very first things he said was that we will never have this again. You will never have to tighten your belt again. And that was an explicit reference to what his father had said during the famine period. And here Kim is going back and using this language again. And that tells me sort of two things, really. The first is that Kim's rule in North Korea is now so secure that he can make a reference to the worst period in North Korean history and not expect any pushback. That basically means he's in charge. He's a total autocrat. And second, this means that North Korea has actually got real food security problems. Again, I'll sort of leave it to others who know better from on the ground, about how many calories exactly North Koreans are getting. But if Kim's making a reference to that suggests that you've seen a real drop in daily calorie intake in North Korea.
And Colin, you're monitoring commodity prices, the prices of basic foodstuffs and fuel and so on. What have you noticed about the price fluctuations, if anything?
So a lot of the prices that we're monitoring directly that we are getting at NK News is mostly exchange rate from Pyongyang. So there's also, we have to rely on numbers from outlets such as Daily NK, and they've reported, based on sources inside North Korea, that there are some price fluctuations, but nothing indicating some kind of collapse.
Jake, I mean, you were there during the Arduous March, the times of famine. Can you please remind our audience of how bad things got?
Oh, it was pretty bad. Every day, seeing dead body on the street or train station, it is part of normal life. Like 1990s, mid-1990s, it is just normal life, seeing dead body on the street and train stations. So, yeah, many people say at that time, during that famine, maybe more than 1 million North Koreans died because of the starvation.
Jake, does it worry you to hear the Supreme Leader even mentioning another arduous march?
If something happened again in North Korea, I'm sure maybe more than 90% of North Koreans don't trust Kim Jong Un and don't follow him.
So what will be the outcome? What will happen?
Still, many North Koreans, they trust Kim Jong Un because they are brainwashed really strongly. But something happening again, like mid-1990s, the North Korean people might like against Kim Jong Un. That means North Korean government cannot last anymore.
Very interesting. Robert Kelly, what do you make of that?
I think a revolt inside North Korea is highly unlikely, right? North Korea's existed now for, 70 years, since the late 1940s, and there's never been any kind of pushback. I do believe that the North Korean population detests a monarchy, but we don't really know, of course, right? Because there's nothing at all like independent opinion. All we really have is the report of defector testimony, such as we're getting now. And most of that has actually been pretty anti-regime, although there's a selection bias issue, because if people like the regime, of course, they wouldn't leave. I do think that if the food security problem in North Korea becomes really severe, you could actually have food riots or something like that, right? I mean, this is one of the reasons why the North Koreans permitted, for example, a lot of illicit trade with North Korea, because they knew they couldn't feed their own people. So they thought if food came in through China, at least it might prevent revolts. But I mean, if you're starving, right, or if you're seeing bodies in the street, and this is not the first time defectors have talked about this. I talked to many defectors, and they talked about this, how you saw lots and lots of people just dead on the street for years. If you have that kind of a situation and it goes on and on and on, I mean, eventually you're going to see some kind of political pushback.
Robert Kelly, Nagy Shafiq, and Collins Worko, thank you all so much for your contributions to the Nexus today. Please stay with us, Jake. We're going to take a closer look at the Kim Dynasty now. And here's a report from the Nexus archives from a couple of years ago. The Kim Dynasty is the only show in town, and North Koreans never miss an episode. The family has ruled this country since it was split from the South 70 years ago. Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and now Kim Jong Un. Different generations, but with much in common. All three leaders have developed a personality cult. A portrait of the first two hangs side by side in every office, home, and public building in the country. There are 35,000 statues of Kim Il-sung alone, one for every 750 people. The pro-Kim propaganda penetrates deep into the North Korean psyche. When Kim Il-sung died in 1994, the nation appeared to be devastated. Similar scenes in 2011, when his son Kim Jong-il died. Kim Jong-un wept as he accompanied his father's coffin. It's widely reported that people who didn't mourn enough were sent to labor camps. Like his father and grandfather, Kim Jong-un can be ruthless. He had his uncle and mentor Yang Song-taek executed in 2013, apparently for being a counter-revolutionary. He's also suspected of having his half-brother assassinated at an airport in Malaysia in February. The defense minister is just one of several high-ranking officials to be executed. He was killed in 2015 with an anti-aircraft gun in front of an audience. Secrecy is another Kim trademark. Kim Jong-il never gave a public speech the whole time he was in charge, 17 years. It's not even possible to be certain about where and when he was born. Kim Jong-un also likes to keep his cards close to his chest. For example, he does have a wife, but very little is known about their relationship. It's not even clear how many children they have. Like all self-respecting dynasties, the Kims love to splash out on themselves. The 34-year-old supreme leader has an estimated fortune of $5 billion, reportedly spending hundreds of millions each year on yachts, watches, luxury cars, imported food, and entertainment. Unbelievable when you consider the average annual income in North Korea is barely $1,800. This is a real-life dynasty, and who knows how much longer the Kims will continue to run the show. And Jake is still with us. Jake, let me ask you about the Kim dynasty. It's often said they are like gods in North Korea. What does that mean?
The North Korean government has mastered the art of brainwashing its people. we must be loyal to Kim Il-sung and his family. Like anyone born in North Korea, from the time I was born, I was brainwashed with the countless lies of the North Korean government. And I sincerely believed in its teachings as I grew up. The North Korean government brainwashes us to believe that it is because of Kim Il-sung and that we were able to be born into this world, go to school, to eat, and to live. It is Kim Jong Un and his family who keep us safe from the United States. They teach us even after they died, they live with us. Actually, they are truly God in the world. And I was willing to die for them. Even I thought that's a great honor.
Why did you decide, how did you decide that they were not gods?
That question is related to why I escaped North Korea, right?
Yes.
Actually, there are two main reasons for my decision to escape from North Korea. The biggest reason is my father. My father died in prison camp in North Korea. He was sentenced to prison for 8 years. But he passed away after 2. Therefore, his body had to stay with them for 6 more years before it could be returned to us. We were at a loss of what to say because of the inhumane law. After 6 years, we asked the police to return my dad's body, but even that didn't happen. The police repeatedly said that they didn't know where he was buried and that they couldn't find him. Eventually, I couldn't even bury my dad's body. After I defected, I learned that the North Korean government doesn't return the bodies of so-called traitors to their families. The bodies are cremated and spread in mountains or rivers. Numerous North Koreans who had been imprisoned testified about it after they defected. After my father's incident, I realized that North Korea was not in fact a paradise on earth, but hell. And I had a small hope. During that time, I heard from a government official that Kim Jong-il, who is Kim Jong-un's father, was very sick, and he would not live long. I had very small hope that whoever become the next leader of North Korea, it would be better than now. But my hope did not last long. Kim Jong-un took the place of his father. The third generation succeeded the second. I no longer had hope for North Korea.
And how did you escape, Jake? How did you escape?
Yeah, that's how my 30,000-mile journey to freedom began. I gave up my life for freedom. I escaped to North Korea through China, Laos, and Thailand on my way to South Korea. Of course, there was a broker who helped me. I crossed the river at night with boat. And then, but China was not a safe place for me either. There were countless dangerous situations in China either. But fortunately, I made it.
You told me that if you had been caught, you would be living in a concentration camp right now. And fortunately, you were not caught. You made it to the United States. You're now living in Utah. What is your life like now in America?
Oh, the life in America is more than I dreamed. I couldn't imagine like that world exists. The only world I imagined like North Korea. I couldn't get any information, outside information in North Korea. So I'm so happy living in America, and then this life, North Korean never imagined like that world exists.
Jake Kim, thank you so much for telling us about your life story today on the Nexus. Much appreciated. And thank you at home and on your phones for watching. Remember, if you want to see this or any of our previous episodes, just go to our channel on YouTube, type in Nexus TRT1. Till next week then, goodbye.